But the reason why is because when conservatives think about killing people, they don't consider it political violence. Who were the people that were constantly saying the tree of liberty needs to be watered by the blood of patriots? Who was constantly spamming the don't tread on me and my Second Amendment right is to defend from a corrupt government? They don't consider these things in the vein. You're going to tell me that Second Amendment loving conservatives don't believe in a healthy sense of political violence?
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today's clip is an absolute firefight from the Pat Brown Show, and trust me, you are going to want to stick around for every second of it. Stephen Bonnell, better known online as Destiny, is sitting on a panel across from conservative co-hosts Blair White and Brad, and the entire conversation goes nuclear over one single question. Who is actually responsible for the political violence climate in America right now? Blair tries to flip the script on Destiny. Brad tries to play the reasonable middle, and Destiny refuses to play the disavow game that liberals have been playing for years. I'm telling you, the moment Destiny pulls out the Tree of Liberty line and turns the entire poll narrative inside out, your jaw is going to drop, so make sure you watch all the way through because the back half of this clip is where it really gets crazy. Also, before we get into it, drop a comment and let me know where in the world you're watching from. I love seeing all the different countries and cities pop up, and I read every single one of them. Alright, enough setup. Let's get into it.
Things do, there's domino effects, there's consequences to actions, including words, and you don't have to be in office for that to matter.
So you don't feel bad about tweeting stuff like that? It's all just memes?
I think it's funny. If the Republicans aren't going to conduct themselves in a serious manner, I think you should laugh at them for it, yeah.
But so it's like, again, we're with that two wrongs make a right. Let me ask you this. If there was a civil war in this country and the Republicans started raping women as part of the war, would your response be that Democrats should also women as part of the war?
No, I would say we shouldn't.
Because you have objective moral standards you should hold yourself in your conduct to, right? But you seem to, when it's just rhetoric, obviously that's not the same as, but I'm trying to test your principle here.
So here's the issue, and I know this doesn't stick because people just don't want to understand this or whatever, but I don't give a fuck, okay? There are actions that we do that are good, because as part of being a human and living in a society, we understand that when we all do these things, generally speaking, they all benefit us. When we talk about things like and murder and theft, you could say that like the action itself is not good for whatever reason you want to argue. And then, sure, I would agree with most of these. But also because who the wants to live in a society where everybody's murdering each other, stealing everything, and raping everybody? It's not good. These are horrible societies to live in. So there's reasons why we all adhere to these moral principles. But if you construct a society such that one side can constantly violate the rules and then cast it as though that's not what's actually happening. And then when the other side tries to say, guys, we all need to stop doing this particular thing, which gives the impression that it is a two-sided problem, there's no morality in that. This is the equivalent to that civil war happening and then somebody saying, well, shouldn't we turn the other cheek and just let them win? Of course not. The most Christian person in the world would say, well, of course we should fight back. Because in that case, rolling over and allowing the other side to destroy you, there's no morality in that. There's no virtue in that. And so this idea, this is why, and I'll do it here because you know what, Brad, because I respect you, because I believe the things you say. But like on Piers Morgan, if I'm surrounded by a bunch of soulless conservatives, I'm never disavowing violence because the only thing they do is they take that disavowal and they go, look, the left acknowledges that it's their problem. And then they continue to stoke the flames on their end. Yeah. We're on a one-way track to destruction here.
But what I would say is that at the end of the day, you should strive to be a good person and uphold yourself to moral standards.
I understand you're saying that, and what I'm telling you is it's not a good person to sit there and give the other side ammunition to use against your own political
Condemning
side.
Evil
listen, there is zero ammunition that I would feel I was getting right now for you to be like, shooting are bad, like assassination attempts are bad. Just like you can sit here and ask me to condemn a million things that Trump has done, and because I have my own individual principles that I hold to a higher, obligation amongst myself to actually stick to, I'm not going to abandon those just because you're sitting in front of me and we disagree on XYZ policy.
Blair,
I think that's kind of ridiculous.
I'm so sorry, but I would just add also that, Stephen, I would feel that it actually gives Republicans and conservative media more ammunition when you don't disavow a shooting on Piers Morgan, for example. They use that as proof. Look, all leftists are crazy, even though that's like obviously not representative of even your full scope of your views, let alone the entire party. Aren't you giving them ammunition by doing that?
No, because if it wasn't me, they would find a one follower Twitter account and then they would say the exact same thing, right?
This right here is the trap that liberals keep falling into for years, and Stephen just refused to step in it. And honestly, watching him hold the line on this was refreshing, because every single time a liberal goes on conservative media, they get baited into doing the same ritual. disavow this, disavow that, condemn this person, condemn that tweet. And what do conservatives do the second you comply? They turn around and say, see, even the left admits the left is the problem. It's a rhetorical scam. And Stephen called it out perfectly. You have to understand something about how this game is played. When Stephen said this on the panel, civil war happening, and then somebody saying, well, shouldn't we turn the other cheek and just let them win? Of course not. That wasn't just a hypothetical. That was him exposing the actual logic conservatives are asking liberals to adopt. They want unilateral disarmament. They want one side to keep apologizing while the other side keeps escalating. And anyone with eyes can see where that road leads. And here's the part that blows my mind. Blair tried to flip it and say, well, actually, you not disavowing gives them ammunition. And it sounds reasonable on the surface until you actually think about it for 2 seconds. Stephen nailed the response. He said this, there is zero ammunition. I would feel I was getting right now for you to be like, shootings are bad. Assassination attempts are bad. Because conservatives don't need real ammunition. They'll manufacture it. Stephen pointed out that if it wasn't him saying something edgy, they'd find some random account with 100 followers and pretend that represents the entire left. This is the part people don't realize. The disavow ritual was never about morality. It was about control. It's about keeping liberals on defense forever while the other side runs the field. And finally, somebody on a major panel just said, no, I have my own principles. I follow them, but I'm not going to keep feeding into a fake narrative that pretends both sides are equally responsible for an environment that is clearly being driven from the top down.
But it would
the
carry less
ammunition
weight.
people use against you, Destiny.
The president of the United States
Destiny,
can't
as
even admit
someone
that
who's
Minnesota
in a
lawmakers were
right-wing
murdered by a
algorithm.
Republican shooter. It's impossible.
Destiny,
There's just
as
no purpose.
someone,
We're
as
on a track
someone
right
who,
now. It's not going to change. This argument is retarded. This is just a deeply unserious argument. I'm sorry. This is not. You can't have one political party that is constantly stoking the flames internationally too, by the way, and then pretend that if Democrats at home just kept disavowing, then eventually we're going to get back on path. Conservatives love the violence. You guys love it. You invite it. You're horny for it. You're excited for it. This is why I said there needs to be a healthy fear in this country.
Why does polling show more support for political violence among liberal Americans?
Because conservatives don't consider alligator Alcatraz or Trump threatening to jail his political opponents as political violence. What was this poll that I saw a while ago? Actually, you're so right, Brad. I'm not being sarcastic. There was a poll that I saw where I think liberals ranked higher than conservatives, and it was something along the line. I wish I could remember the exact thing, but it was like, is it ever justified to use political violence or to kill an opponent or something like this? And I think the liberal part of that poll was higher than the conservative part. But the reason why is because when conservatives think about killing people, they don't consider it political violence. Who were the people that were constantly saying the tree of liberty needs to be watered by the blood of patriots? Who was constantly spamming the don't tread on me and my Second Amendment right is to defend from a corrupt government? They don't consider these things in the vein. You're going to tell me that Second Amendment loving conservatives don't believe in a healthy sense of political violence?
Government, albeit I think a lot of conservatives have a little bit of a fantasy in their head about defending themselves from a tyrannical government with their personal firearms, but to pretend as if that's the same thing.
Wouldn't that be
as
political
violence as actual people at Trump rallies dying and getting shot, to pretend as if it's the same thing as going in and trying to assassinate the president is insane. That's not the same thing.
Okay, so there it is. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. This is why it polls so lowly on conservative. They don't consider that political violence. It's something different. This is more noble. It's more righteous. That's not political violence. It's self-defense from the government.
Well, I'm going to move us along here because we have gotten bogged down in this, but I also think there's some valuable points that we fleshed out. So I do appreciate the spirited conversation. This, though, we've talked about all of this rhetoric and this conversation about this. I do believe has an effect of desensitizing people to violence. So I've been kind of disturbed to see, and I want to get both of your thoughts on this trend across TikTok and other platforms as well. You have this rise of users essentially using the audio of Charlie Kirk's assassination, of him literally dying, as a transition sound for outfits for prom and other things. So here's the headline: TikTok pulls all known viral outfit videos using Charlie Kirk assassination gunshot audio.
Okay, this is the moment Stephen completely takes over the entire panel, and I want you to pay attention to what he does because it's a masterclass in flipping a bad faith argument. The framing the whole panel was operating under was this poll showing liberals supposedly support political violence more than conservatives do, and on the surface, that sounds like a knockout blow for the right. Stephen could have dodged it. He could have softened it. Instead, he goes for the throat. He says it directly. Conservatives love the violence. You invite it. You're excited for it. And then he asked the question that absolutely shatters the entire framing of that poll. Stephen said this: when conservatives think about killing people, they don't consider it political violence. Who are the people constantly saying the tree of liberty needs to be watered by the blood of patriots? And this is the educational moment I want you to sit with for a second. That phrase about the tree of liberty comes from Thomas Jefferson in 1787, writing about Shays' Rebellion. For centuries, that line has been used in American conservative rhetoric to justify armed resistance to government. It's printed on shirts, it's tattooed on people, it's quoted at rallies. So when a poll asks conservatives if they'd ever support political violence, of course they say no, because in their minds, what they're describing isn't violence. It's heroism, it's self-defense, it's patriotism. And here's where it gets even better. The panel basically proves Stephen's point in real time. Somebody pushes back and says, well, assassinating the president isn't the same as Trump rally attendees being shot. And Stephen just sits there because that is the entire argument. The right has constructed a moral framework where their violence is righteous and the other side's violence is criminal. Same action, different label depending on who's doing it. When Stephen said this is more noble, more righteous than political violence, it's self-defense from the government, that was him mocking the exact logic conservatives use to launder their own rhetoric, and nobody on that panel had a real answer for it because there isn't one.
But for a while, these were going viral and a bunch of young people were doing it. I want to play you guys a sample. I'll probably change out the music in post-production so it doesn't actually show the sound, but you guys will hear it and we'll discuss. Listen to this.
It's disgusting.
It's horrible. It's terrible. I see some conservatives on like Twitter trying to like find these young women and their names and cancel them and find where their parents work and get their college offers rescinded. And I don't support any of that because Blair, my read on this is these women, or most of them, they're 16, 17, probably most of them are not like hard leftists who actually are glad Charlie's dead. They're probably people who are just totally desensitized, and it's been turned into a meme, and they've, had to do school shooting drills, and they've seen so much violence that they just didn't realize how profane that comes across and how insensitive and inhumane it comes off.
Right.
So I don't think they're all necessarily evil, but it concerns me that young people are this desensitized, Blair.
Yeah. I would err on the side of they're just a couple young, dumb bitches who don't know the gravity of that. I do find it disgusting. I don't agree with like going and trying to ruin their lives. They're young women with the rest of their lives ahead of them. That's a bit much for me. But I think the point is proven partially by that, obviously, that people are super desensitized to it. I mean, we have a great example right here in Destiny. I mean, to be honest, like, obviously, the litany of things that you've said around political violence is indicative of the fact that you are yourself desensitized to it. I'm desensitized to it as well. I think we all are. Like, it's even in this last shooting and incident, it's weird. It's almost like despite the fact that I was physically near this last one, it still didn't shake me as much as like the first one when I was just seeing it on Twitter. So that's how I knew like, oh, wow, I'm way too used to that. But that's where it comes down to the only solution to that is the individual responsibility that everyone has as citizens, and then even more so as commentators, to lower the tone, to lower the pressure, to say like, hey, we can't go down this route, because when we go down this route, yeah, it's cringe to be talking about civil war and all this, but is this not how things like that start historically? They don't just start with everyone.
Would you acknowledge that Trump as the president, he never will, but he should lead by example on that?
Absolutely. And that's not difficult for me to say at all. Like the amount of things that Trump says that I, on a range from roll my eyes at to feel the need to publicly condemn, like it's a lot of things. I don't like, the way he disrespects, Christianity often in his words. I don't like the way that he will dehumanize Democrats, as much as I am not a fan of Democrats. Like, absolutely. But the difference is, I'm not going to pretend as if only Donald Trump's words matter, as if citizens on a regular everyday level don't matter, and then even more so commentators who are speaking to hundreds of thousands to millions of citizens.
Destiny, are you bothered by people kind of having this desensitization to violence in these videos, or do you not care?
And then the conversation pivots to these TikTok videos with teenage girls using a real-life shooting audio as a transition sound for prom outfits. And listen, I'm not going to defend that. It's gross, it's disturbing. But what struck me about this whole segment was how the panel almost accidentally landed on the real diagnosis without realizing it. Brad said something I genuinely agreed with. He said his read is these girls are 16, 17, they're not hard leftists celebrating somebody's death. They're just completely numb. And that is the actual story here. We have an entire generation that grew up doing active shooter drills in elementary school. They watched horrific footage scroll past them on their phones every single day since they were old enough to hold one. The horror response that older generations have to violence, these kids don't have it anymore. Not because they're evil, because the volume got turned up so high for so long that the dial broke. And then Blair tries to pivot this into a gotcha by saying Stephen himself is desensitized. And Stephen, to his credit, just owned it. He said he was physically near the latest shooting, and it didn't shake him the way the first one did, and that's how he knew he was too used to it. That's actually a kind of self-awareness you almost never see on a panel show. But here's the part that made me sit up. Brad asked if the person at the top should lead by example on lowering the temperature, and Blair, the conservative co-host, said absolutely. Not difficult for me to say at all. That's a concession most conservative pundits will never make on camera. And it tells you something. Even the people defending the current vibe in this country know deep down where the temperature is being set from. They know who turned the dial up. They just can't always say it out loud. So, what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.